Ahmed, are you still with us? Okiki, good evening. How's it? Okay. So we're talking about the last class, which was this one. We talked about using a form and how you can submit data from that form into your database directly using the insert into format. So I was asking, is there anybody that have tried it, that have tried the whole thing of submitting and it's showing inside your database? Not really. That side is noisy, but we can still manage. Yeah, I can hear you. Yes, we can hear you. Okay. Database. Okay. Um, I think what you can do is mute yourself first. Okay. So what I was saying is, what you can do is screenshot that part of your code that is the form. You screenshot the form starting. It must start from where the form is, where the form tag is, down to this part, and then you can screenshot that your PHP code also and send it to the group so debug it together. Um, what about who else again is here? Was it Okiki that just finished talking? Okay, 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 okay. Yeah, that's what we have to do so that everybody will be able to catch up because like I said, it's a crude operation. That is, you have to create, you have to read, and you have to update and then delete. That's when you can fully understand how a database actually works. So as we are moving on, you all have to practice it so that it's not just you can learn it and understand it, and by the time you want to implement it, you realize that probably there are some things that you didn't get or you've forgotten. So it is when you now practice it on your system, then you have it saved. So later on, you can still come back to it and get some code out of it. So that's just the essence of you practicing it. So I think we'll just have to let me just do a recap of what I explained earlier. So this is my form. Yeah, can you hear me? Okay. 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 If you can see my screen, this is my header location here. But is your this thing submitting to the database? Okay, you saw it in the database. That means right from your submit, that's where your issue is. The issue is not from your header location then. It has to be from your submit. Since it has not entered your database, then it cannot perform that header location function. So just snap your code and send it to the group so we can debug it together. Okay, so this is just a recap of everything I explained previously. So starting from the form, everything here you can just seclude it. So starting from the form has to have an action and a method. But because the action here is still on this page, the action is still on this page, which is this whole function that you see here in PHP is actually the action. So at the point of you clicking submit, it will direct down to this action, and the action is the same page. So the method that we are using to submit our details is in a post method. So that is the reason why in our if statement we're using post. If it was that we use get, we are going to use a get details here. So that will be dollar underscore get, and then the key value. So in this case now, we have our label and then we have our input. Forget about the label, just focus on the input. The input has to have a type and a name. So this ID is just for you to represent what you have in your label. Label for is the same with ID. So that one is aside. Just the type and the name is what that really matters in submitting a form. So the type for this input is actually an email, and the name is represented as email also. The type is text and is represented as P name. That's product name. Okay. So here we have product price also, and then we have details, and then we have submit. So the button here that is that the name is submit. You can actually give it any name. It's not necessary that all these are the same. These two are the same. So the type is certainly has to be submit because the button is in this form. And then I'm now giving it the name submit because I want to call it up here. So if I did not use submit down here, I can still I have to make use of whichever thing that I'm using as the name for my button up here. So the first thing first is your config. If your configuration file is not correct, then there is an high tendency of you having error. So in your config file, your config must be in the same folder where your it's not a must, but just make sure your config is correctly directed in your code. So my config is here. I can actually bring my config down here. I can bring it anywhere. But since it's in the same folder and my config directory is correct in my HAD, then I should not have any issue. And so in my config.php, I said this one is a normal template that you can just copy and paste because this declares your server, this declares the user, this declares the password, this declares the name of the database. So check the name of your database. It must correlate with what you have here. This is product DB. There is no space, there is no underscore. Product DB. And if you check my database here, the name of my database is what product DB. No space, no underscore. So if you add space to yours, you must check it and confirm that the name of your database in your config file is correct. So if you're having issues, the first thing you should check, because I know I sent this file to you guys. So since you all use the same file, you must cross check if this database name is the same with the database name that you declared. I mean that you declared in your server. So this is a variable that connects your SQLi code with your database. So down to my head, I have to declare, like I have to what, like include, yes, I have to include this config file because it's a separate code. So I have to include it in this my what, this my add.php code, which is why I have it up here. Just keep everything that you have here is really not anything that we have to use in this class now. So yeah. Yeah, I understood what he said. So in PHP, include is actually used. It's like a way of saying if this is available, if this file is available, display it. But if it is not available, skip this line. That's basically what this include does. But you can also have it in form of require, just like this. So you can have require once, you can also have just require. So they also perform a similar function. You can see require is identical. The thing there is the fact that it is basically just like you are saying that if this is available, import it here. But as for require, this file has to be what available. If it is not available, pop up an error. I don't know if you get that statement. So that means everything down here will not run, or because this is required. This file is required for the remaining words code to run. So as for include, if there is no config, the whole thing will still run. As far as you do not call in a variable name that is outside this code. I don't know if you understand that statement. In this include now, in this include, I'm making use of this variable database. So definitely if I should clear this include, the whole code here will still run down to this point where database is. This is the only thing that will pop up an error because this database variable was not declared. So definitely this include will still run even though the file is not present. Everything after that include will still run. But as for required, the error starts from this line. The error pop-up will start from this line. So definitely the remaining code will not run. As for it required once, that required once is just like I've explained. Once. Once it has been used, it is dumped. You understand? Yeah, you won't be able to use it on another file unless you declare it again in another file. You understand? Unless you declare it again in another file. So in this include, um in this file now, you are seeing this include in this present file, which is add.php, and at the same time I'm including header.php. So certainly if I'm to run this code now, it is running the whole of HTML down to the end, and then progressing back to the top here, our PHP code will run. So it will make use of all the variable names that are here to fill in the gaps that are here. So if I should declare this my include config.php in my header.php here, I don't know if you get what I'm saying. In my header.php here, it's like saying that this include has included a what? A config file in this header, which is the beginning of my page. And then in my add.php, I'm now still declaring that include again. In between, it will pop up an error because you've declared it twice in just one page because this header has been included. So somehow you still, the more you play around with it, you get to realize that some things are not meant to be, while some are just meant to be the way it is. So in every file, as far as you are sharing an header and footer, like the way I did here, I have my header up here, I have my footer included down here. So everything I just have here is my content. So as long as I have all my code separated this way, it's preferred, or should I say it's best, what you have your every file that needs your database, you include it there. So my header, I have this, so just let me remove it here. So as I was explaining, so we have the include, which is including our config.php. So in our config, the only thing that we're needing here is our database variable. So down here, this if statement here is just confirming if a document has been sent. I mean, a details has been sent to the database. So the whole explanation here is if this is set. So what exactly is set? If this post submit is set. So this post is the variable. How was it? This sorry. So this post is a variable, and then we have the name to be submit. So this is the key, and the value will be the answer, which is one. And then you have your email. I mean, this post for email representing the value that have been imputed under the email field, and then is now saved inside this variable name, same as the product name, same as product price and product details. So what we have here is just a query to check if your data has been sent to the database using this MySQL query. So the query here is what insert into this product table, into the columns of email, product name, product price, product details, and then the values are what you have here, arranged in this manner, in this order. So if you are having an error, always check your code, the kind of what column that you use here, not column, exclamation. I mean the kind of code that you use. There is difference between this code and this code. You guys have to take note of that. So there is difference. So if you are declaring the table, you have to make use of this kind of quotes and not this kind of quotes. So when you are doing it, you will get to know the difference, the differences. So if it is the value, as for the value, you make use of what? Either single quotes or double quotes, whichever one you prefer. But there is a rule in PHP that if you start your code with double quotes, always make sure there is no any other double quotes in between that quote until the end of the code. So since I've used a double quotation here, that means everything I have inside here must be single quotes. So you have to confirm that too in your code so you not have an error. So down here is just to check if this thing is what correct. That is if it is giving a value one. If this is correct. If this is correct, it will direct you to this location. So that is what this statement works for. And then if it is not correct, that is else, it will echo error in your code. Fine. Um, I think this is correct. Okay. So today we'll be talking about getting our data from the database. That is fetching our data from the database. So in the CRUD operation, it is called read. So the whole thing that we did here is what create, and then there is a part for read. So imagine this kind of project that I showed you earlier. For everything here to show, it is reading it from the database. It's read everything from the database. That's why all the details here are showing. And then you can now decide that you want to edit it or you want to delete it. Or yes, you want to edit or you want to delete. So in this case, I created a template that looks like this in my project. So everything here has to be a list of all the details that we have in our database here. I just want to make it this way. So I designed it to look like a card, and I just want all my details that are in this database to show right here, one after the other. That is, a row details here like this will show as all the details here in this card, just like that. So let's begin. So this is just a design template, and let me come down. Is down here as my words index.php. So like I said, anytime you want to make use of the database, the first thing you have to do is what include. So I'm including my config.php, end your line of code, save. So each time you want to read, it's more like you are using that this thing for select. Please just hold on. Please just hold on. Okay, okay. So just like how we have it right here in form of this manner, let me just copy it so that you'll be able to compare it with what you have here. But looking at this one is for inserting too. But today what we are doing is select. So you are selecting everything that you have in that database. So you will represent it using asterisk. That is select all, and then you declare it from where you want to select it. So in our database, you can actually get the template to that code, which is right here under SQL. And then you can see select all from the table called products. So where here is just if you want to give it a condition. So select all from products is what you have here. So if you actually follow the process at which this is done, you realize that I can break it down into smaller chunks like this. So this is my SQL code, which is equals to the whole thing I have to type in here, which is select all from the typical products. And I said you can give it other functions here, which is order, ORDER by, I want to order it by ID in any other format. Okay. So this DES means decreasing order. So by default, okay, cancel this. Mm-hmm. So that one is just for you to write a query. Let me just write it out here. Mm-hmm. So the next line of code will be make query and get to make the query and get a result. So to do that, it's still the same way you have everything here in one line. So I'm just going to merge this my SQL code together with what I have in my database. So which is what I'm going to do now, and I will assign it to one variable as results. So you can see the suggestion that I have here. My SQL query, my SQLI. Yes, it's supposed to be SQLI because I'm using a local host, and then the name of my database, which is database, and then separate with a comma, and then you have your SQL code. So somehow, if you really follow what I did here, this is just a variable that represents everything you have here. If everything here is true, the variable will what have a value. And this is just the query function in PHP, MySQLi query. So you have a bracket here that has this whole content. So the first attributes that you have here is your database. So the database is directly gotten from our config.php, which is having the direct access to your database management folder here. And then we are also having another attribute of SQLi, which represents the query code that we want to run inside this what database. So that's basically the whole illustration of what you have here. You can see it is comma separated, and then you have the whole code, the SQL code right here. So this also works, and this is the SQL code that we're using in this case, not insert into. So since everything that we have here is already saved as what results, select all from product as products. So let me save it as products. So I'll save it as product. So it's best I pluralize it because I will need it to be pluralized. Okay, yeah, since it's in an index. Mm-hmm. Since it's an index, we this is our code. In our code here, we can have it in this way. Okay, so everything here is all recent. Okay, let me comment this one out first. I want to I want you to see a list of details that you can get from it. So we can make use of a for each loop. I want to make use of a PHP code here. So since it is inline, I have to start and end it this way. So I just want to have something like this. For each dollar sign product as product. So you can see this one that I pluralized is actually what we have here. Everything gotten from the database is in a multi-dimensional array. Yes, it's in a multi-dimensional array. That is, it's having an associative array and an index array inside it of it. So I'm now declaring for each of it to be represented as what product. So all the rows will be directed down to the product, and then you can now call out the what the key of each of the products. So down here, I'm not even done with my code. So it has something like this. Yes, and then my next line of PHP code will look like this. End it. Yes. So what do I want to be looking through? Hmm. Let me just give it this way. Echo product ID. Yes. So looking at this now, let's just test run this and see. And if it works, I will explain. Yes. So we have the ID to be 321. So the 3, I made use of descending order. So it's only the ID that I just printed out. So we have 1, 2, 3, and now it's bringing it out in what in a descending order 3, 2, 1. So the explanation of what's happened here is the fact that this SQLi that you have here is just the connection. I mean, it's just the code. Yes, the SQL code, and then this makes the query and gets a result from the database. From the database. So this is the database here, and then this is the SQL query that I've given to it. You can write it in this straightforward manner, that is just copying everything that you have here, right here, and pasting it here to represent this SQL variable. So this is the query that what gets everything from the database. So once it's getting everything, if you really understand the factors for rows and columns, you realize that it gets all the rows and all the columns for each of these. So it is definitely in form of like an associative array. I mean, multi-dimensional array where you have an index array representing a row, and then an associative array representing a key and a value, key and value, key and value, key and value of each of all the details that you have here. So it is definitely so ambiguous. So for you to now break it down into smaller chunks, that's when you now make use of for each, or use your while loop, or then you use your for loop. But mostly make use of what for each and while. So I usually prefer using this for each because I like it being simple this way, because this is pluralized, everything that we have from the database, which is very many, is already pluralized in form of products. So if it is that you are doing something for blogs, just pluralize it here as blogs, so that when you are using your for each loop, for each blogs as a single blog. Do you understand that now? Echo blog ID or echo the blog email. So in this case now, I can just what concatenate it with what? Um, okay, so don't let me end the line here. I can decide to concatenate it with dollar. No, let me have some words inside. So that's product ID, repre, representing this email. So I'm concatenating this with the product. Okay, this kind of box, and then email. Yep, and then end the line. Yes. So if you really get this, for each product as product, echo out the product ID, concatenating it with representing the email dash dash, and then you have what product email. So once I save and then I come up here and what reload, can you see it? So the theory is representing the email admin at gmail.com, and then that's for the last person. That's for the last person in the what's in the database. So up in my code, if I should clear this part of DESC, so by default it will be in ascending order. Can you see it? One, two, three. So every other details are aligning. So you can decide to, print out everything in form of a list, just like this. Just like this. So instead of us printing out the ID itself, the main ID from the database, which is very bad, you don't print out the ID for other people to see, because you can have tons of what of data in the database. So instead of we echoing out the ID, since it's a for each loop, you can what make use of a loop itself. I mean, you can make use of a variable to loop through in normal table we usually use s slash n, which is what serial number. So because we are not using listing in this design now, you can decide to use listing, either ordered list or another list, or just declare it. We had code it like what I want to do here now. So in my for each, I can just say my dollar ID to be equals to, oh sorry, okay, yeah, dollar ID equals to 1. That is starting from 1, and then end this code this way. Yes, dollar ID starting from 1. This is one line of code like that oh. And then the next line you are saying a for each kiniko kiniko as kiniko kiniko. So when you are echoing, I want to echo out that dollar ID, and then I'm concatenating it with, can you see, representing the email. Mhm. Just like that. So the dollar ID is usually print 1 1 1 1 1 for everything. But in a case whereby it's a serial number, so it's supposed to be increasing, you can just make use of this. That's the basic operation. So that plus plus increases that ID from its initial value. So the initial value that we have here now is 1. So after the first loop, it increases by 1. It first print out the 1 and then increase it. Come back here again, increase it, and so on like that. So now let's see if it's still going to give us the same thing. Yeah, still the same output. So you can decide to, style it in any way you want. So, but just don't print your ID on your this thing, in your whatever. So that's how for each actually works, and that's how you can print on your database. So with this design, I want to work with this my design here, so that we have a very nice visual illustration of what we are doing here, instead of this whole story that looks like a list here. So I can decide to comment this one out, but just let's make use of it here. So I have this. Let's see how it looks like here. So this is one, um this is for one, that is one product. This is one is for another product, and then this one is for another product. So if you want to arrange this, you have to take note of the way it is being arranged in your design. So this part where we have column 6 and column 4 for medium devices, that is where you are going to insert your loop. So what I'm just trying to say is the fact that I can decide to comment these ones out and then just be left with one. So we have just one here now. So is this one now that we continue to loop through? So this whole code for each, can copy it and bring it down here and paste. End it also with this. Save. Uh-huh. So all this keep duplicating itself over and over and over and over again, just like the whole thing is being repeated here. Mm-hmm. So what's the next thing? The next thing is to specify the details you want to print out, your echo to echo out in the product. So all I need here now is the product name. So in my database, I have this thing called product name. The product names are always long, so I can, print that out here using my H4. Okay. So the whole thing that I have here, I can now decide to what I'd put it in PHP as, so is either I can say ECHO echo dollar product. So because it's single one, and then this is how I'm declaring it in an associative array, product name. What I'm writing in here is the, yes. So that's the column that you have here. Product name, that's the name that you have right here. So in front of me, can you see? So this is the first one, this is the second one, this is the third one. If you should check it, I have it right here. First one, second one, third one. They are, these two, they are the same, but this is just one. So because they are just three in my database, that's why we have just three here. So I can decide to, echo out the details here, or yeah, the details are long. I can decide to echo out the details or the product price. So I would like to put the price there. Yes, I would like to put the product price there. So just like how we have it here, we can also have it in this what details. So how will I do that? There is something else again in PHP. So since instead of starting out your PHP code this way, you can have it like this. You can see that equal sign simply means anything that you see here, just echo it out. So I will have my product. So this is my product price. Can I see 500 naira? Let me try and see if I can copy out naira from here. So in this case, I can put in naira here. That's exactly how it looks like. So we have the whole price to be displaying right here. So you can decide to insert several other things also, as long as all this actually works. So I can decide to comment this one out now. Oh god, I don't want to clear it. Mhm. As long as this whole thing here are correct, then you certainly won't have issues. So all these ones are not needed anymore. You only needed it to compare what we have here. So definitely this is just the little thing that is what's basically used for fetching the data from the database, and how you can what loop through it in a way that you won't have errors in splitting those ambiguous code. Because if you should echo out what you have here, this product, you have to what print. Let me even try and see. So you make use of this print out function, print it in a readable format for product because it's very big. So let's see how it looks like. Can you see? This is the sorry, this is the result. So for current field for 0, field count, length, number rows, types. What's this safe? But this field count is for year. Number of rows is 3, 1, 2, 3, and then the field count is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Definitely everything that you have here is what you can see here. So if we do a print out function for products, then we will have to like dump it again, which is another function entirely, but I don't want to confuse us with that. So for now, this is just basically it. So for more info, this more info is, I've not designed it yet, so that's the reason why I can't make use of it to explain. It's just like if I should click on this more info, I want to see only details concerning this particular ID. I will now want to see the details. So the details is here. So it will comprise of what the product name, the product price, the product details, and the email address that created it. So I can decide to specify that okay, it's only this one that I want to see. As for this one, if I should click for the one that is having index number 2, this one is index 1, this one is index 2. Once I click on more info, it should display only index 2. And then for this one too, you should display what? Index 3. There is a way you will add code it in your what's it called, in this particular place where you are linking it. So it's just like you are specifying that if I have a page for single product dot php, just let's assume there is a page like this. So at the point of clicking on more info, I'm currently on index. So at the point of clicking on more info for this particular product, it will show me a single product, but I want it to have an ID of the whichever one. This is skipping. So whichever one that is being clicked, if it is 1, if it is 2, if it is 3, this is when you can now add code your ID inside this link. So it will look like this: ID to be equal to. This is actually how query parameter is. This is how a query parameter is. So as far as you're starting with question mark, it will display in your URL that okay, this is a query parameter, and then as far as this ID is equal to, then you now have, if it is hard coded, it will be 1 like this. As far as this ID is equals to 1, it will display everything that has to do with ID 1 in that single product page. But because this is skipping through now, you have to hard code it using your PHP function, and then we can just do it this way. And then you have your $ product ID. I don't know if you understand that. Please, are you guys still with me? Hello, are you guys? Yes. So it's just saying that the whole thing that you have here now will display in your URL. So let's assume I just want this to still be on index.php. I can index.php, and then it will look like this. So you will see it's ID 1, you see ID 2, you see ID 3, you see ID 4, depending on the page, I mean the particular ones that is being clicked. So this is for ID 1. Can you see down here? I don't know. I can't point it. You can see down here, this for ID 1. So here is for ID 2. Here is for ID 3. So certainly if there is a page for single product, This part where it's showing index.php now is not meant to be index. It's supposed to be what's it called? Product. And then it will show the ID. Okay. So all the details concerning that ID one will be what will show in that product page. So that's basically it. So you can see it's showing your URL. It's showing your URL. It's showing your URL. So that's just how it is. So to test everything, let me now add a new details. I don't want to use where's my Jumia? Let me see if there is something I can copy out here. So that's product name, product price. I want it to be in. I don't want it to be in error because it is values. So no comma. Yes. So the product details are Igbami. All I see details to copy like this. Mhm. So upon clicking submit, can you see it's showing directly immediately right here. So this is the price. Where is my Naira? Did I remove Naira away? In product price, I must have removed it by mistake. So that's just how it is. Hope you guys understand. Show you are okay. Yes, we can hear you. Yes, so the Naira sign is showing. So from here I can work more on my design. Deflex justify content between. Let me first cancel this and then down here and then up here this way. So here I can also have for the email. I want to print out the email right here. Um so definitely it is directly from PHP. I can just make use of equal sign. So echo the details for product, that particular product email. So the email will display right here. So upon saving and then coming here to check, you can see the email is displaying right here. And lastly, for the details, I can also have p like this, a paragraph tag, and then let me give it a class of text to be in secondary or mute, and then still using my PHP. Yes, I'll have my product into the details. Is it details I made use of? In the table is product underscore details. So product underscore details. See back here. Voila. Show you margin bottom for everything should be 3. So it will give it a space right here. So that's just it though. So I will hold just towards to practice all this. So in our next class, we'll be able to talk about edit. Edit is to update. Edit is to update. So we'll be able to explain more on that, buttress more on it. And if you have something like this, you can decide to style your own to you can style your own to make sense to make it look good. But basically for the edit, we need a button or a symbol that can represent edits, and then it will just take us back to this input field. In this input field, it will have the answers already, like the way we have it here now. So upon clicking edit, it just shows a page like this, having already having its ready-made value inside it. So instead of submit, you just see updates. And then when you click update, it will what? Change that details, that ID immediately to just update it, just like how we have here. Just to tamper with it and then change the value affected. So it is update. Can you see? Update the products, just the code that you have here. And then you will now realize that in our product page, the value will change. So thank you very much for staying online. I think that's all for tonight's class. Yeah, there's a record. So is there any question? Sorry, we didn't get you. Yeah, there's a record. Yes. Okay. Okay. For this aspect, I must have as yes. You can see yes. The remaining these things here were just so what I would just say is you have to practice it. You have to practice it. It's at the point of you practicing that's when you get to understand. Um there should have been a course. I've taught some people, so probably that's what I was thinking. There is this part, yes, where I talked about this looping. So probably if you should check what's it called? Our videos on YouTube. They should have I think yes, I think we've touched the loops in the video. So we've touched loops. So if you should check for loops in that video, you will see something that looks like this. Though our data were not fetched directly from database because we have not touched MySQL there, but we had an array, like an associative array, like I explained. We had an array hard coded in this side, and then we now printed it out here again. So that's just how the whole thing is. So if you basically understand this, then you can get your data from the database and separate it anyhow. You can arrange it anyhow. So you can see here now I imputed all the data in form of what card. There is a part in this kind of code where I outputted everything in a table row, in a table. So in my table here, I have table head, I have table foot. These tools are not necessary. But as far as the table is being declared, then I can have my table row and table data, table row, table data. So if you notice, the table looks very short, but it's not actually short. Everything that has to do with that table was fetched directly from the database. That's why you have your for each loop here. So from here to here is a loop. So everything that you have right here is a loop. This script, just try and unsee the script. Don't look at the script at all. This is just the only thing that is what looping through each time as far as there is a value. So we have your ID. The ID is just the index. It's not directly ID from the database. This ID is just for index. So you have your ID one that keeps increasing as your table data for s/n, which is what sign on number. I don't know what this slash n mean, but that's what we basically use. So it's just what's a serial number. hmm As for the ID, and then down to picture. This whole code that you see here is just for one picture, but that one you later understand that. So for the name, this is for full name, which is the third header. So the data is what you have here. HTML special char is a function in PHP to it's just for use it's just for security reasons, just so that our form that we have here is not secured. So basically you can send something that looks like this in my SQL code, and it will save it, because my SQL here is just a database. It is not really anything special. You can see this B here is a bold, right? But this is an HTML code. So indirectly what I'm trying to say here, oh sorry, let me just cut this. What I'm trying to say here is that somebody can input some raw JavaScript code that will tamper with this whole page and probably destroy the website. So basically, this form is not secured in any way yet. So if I have the whole details and I save here, so you can see it, it will definitely save in my database. Ibuluwa, oh Yonisha, I think it's here. I think I already had HTML special chats. Did I? Hmm. I think it removed it. But basically that web page, which is this, is actually weak. Is actually weak, because if you should type in a JavaScript, I will look for a JavaScript input that I can input here. You will see it to perform some functions that is not meant to do. So it's just tamper the whole page and then destroy it or something like that. So if you want it to be a bit secured, so once it saves it on your database and then wants to print it out, and once you print it out, you make use of that HTML special char, which is what you are seeing here. I've explained all this in those tutorials. So later on you get to understand it better. But for now, just understand how you can print this from your database. Any other question? Any other question? Okay. It is double bold. It is bolded twice. So you can see this bold is different from this bold. At the point of me inspecting, you will see it's outputting 2 BB. You can see it's an header and it's still having bold. So definitely the site is not secured. Um Let me end the video. Thank you. God bless you. Bye bye.